Okay. I'm Kris. Welcome back. This is part 2. Disturbing lost media from Reddit. Blame it on George. Let's get into it.
Well, after that last entry, I think we need a little palate cleanser. And that's where today's sponsor, Manscaped, comes into play. Last month, I spoke of their Lawnmower 4.0 hair trimmer, which is still a purchase and free shipping. Thanks to Manscaped for sponsoring this video. Strange low-budget religious kids show. Possibly late 80s to earlier mid-90s. Creepy religious kids show made by a cult I escaped from.
Okay.
In 2021, a Reddit user named NoNameGal999 posted this onto r/tip of my tongue. It's a deep rabbit hole that I intended to cover forever ago, but I thought it would fit well here. Her post reads, I know the title sounds clickbaity, but I assure you, every word of it is true. And what I'm describing is real. I just know it is. Some background. The cult in question is called the Family International, or TFI. I grew up in Huntington Beach, which, funnily enough, is where the cult started. I was born into it, with my parents still remaining members to this day. Their start dates for the cult as of now being unknown. The show followed a sheep, possibly named something biblical, as they encountered problems. The show was in the style of Sesame Street, with puppets and actors with small animated segments. Standard kids show affairs, right? Well, the problems encountered dove into disturbing subject matter. One segment I recall had the sheep talking to a little boy who had said he wanted to, quote, serve Jesus in all the ways he could. With the sheep saying the little boy should, quote, give his body to the church. With an animated Jesus standing next to what I recall being children wearing little clothing. The show, from what I remember, appeared to have been made in the 80s, judging by the camera quality. But I grew up in the 90s and saw these at only 4 years old, so that puts us at 1994 for my earliest recollection of it. Some of the kids within our group were born in the 80s, and they had seen these too, so that puts a possible start date as late as 1985 to 1989, but I could be wrong. The show came on VHS, and we had hundreds stored away on church property. If these proves the existence of hundreds of episodes, or just means there are multiple copies of the same episode, is unknown. Information is likely scarce for 2 reasons. Either it's been scrubbed to save reputation, or it was produced by the cult with no release outside it, so obviously no documentation. I also believe that the actress who voiced Sheep was a gospel singer who sang in numerous videos for the cult dating back to the 70s, which also leads me to believe it may have had musical segments. Children within the cult may have also been used for the production as well. I intend to update as new information is found, and I thank anyone who takes the time to read and help the search. I want to take a quick moment to talk about the Family International cult. Their website describes themselves as an, quote, online Christian network of individuals committed to sharing the message of God's love with others. They believe that, quote, love is God's solution to the problems the world faces. Love put into action is the greatest service of humankind. So far so good. What's the issue? Well, dozens of ex-members have spoken out against the cult. They're often referred to as a sex cult that engages in extremely disturbing acts in front of, or even including, children. Their leader, David Berg, preached, quote, God is love and love is sex, which facilitated the exploitation of children in communes across the world. At one point, There were more than 30,000 members in 100 countries, and almost half were children. Perhaps their most notable controversy involves a man named Ricky Rodriguez. He was born in 1975 and into the cult by his mother, Karen Zerby, who happened to be their spiritual leader. During this time, the cult was known as the Children of God and would engage in something called flirty fishing, in which female members would seduce male non-members into joining and raising newborns into the cult. Rodriguez was conceived this way and adopted by David Berg, being heavily exploited and sexually abused growing up. By the 2000s, Rodriguez left the Children of God and became resentful towards them, writing about his horrendous experience online. Everything culminated in 2005, when Rodriguez invited his longtime nanny and abuser, Angela M. Smith, to dinner. He then murdered her, confessed his crime, and shot himself. It's widely believed that following this event, the cult changed its name to the Family International, or some variation, and scrubbed anything related to the case, perhaps including whatever cartoon OP is searching for. The cult did broadcast several shows and animations for their young members, like The Lovettes, Life with Grandpa, and Treasure Attic. Unfortunately, none of these are it. No Name Gal 99 made this account for the sole purpose of finding this mysterious show. But to date, the mystery has remained cold for over 2 years. While there's no evidence of the show ever existing, I can imagine this cult producing something like OP's description. Bizarre, low-budget religious programming is all too common.
And they probably had to do that if they have got 30,000 people, half were kids. You can keep the kids brainwashed by this type of puppet show cartoons, and you can still spread your message to them through those. So I wouldn't doubt that, yeah, of course there's these.
And yet, they are ridiculously hard to find. Unless they aired on television, or another former member unveils more information, this disturbing program may be lost forever.
Blocked. Blocked the sound. I was injured in a car accident. Can you get me money? Give me some money. I wasn't injured. I just wanted the money.
There is a story of a lost creepypasta making the rounds on r/tipofmytongue and r/lost media. Various times has the story been posted and discussed, yet no one has been able to find the original tale. The Reddit post with the most information reads as follows. I think I found the story on the front page of a creepypasta forum around 5 years ago. From what I can recall, it's a short story about the Soviet Union finding God, yes, capital G, in the wilderness of Siberia in the 1970s. They then kill him and run tests / use pieces of his corpse to develop their technology. This may be unrelated, but I believe there was an accompanying picture of 4 armed men in the snow, surrounded by twigs or shrubs. The main 2 were smiling and holding a large piece of skin, or hide up with sticks, while the other 2 looked intensely at. Gives me the chills whenever I think about it. But the concept has always been so fascinating to me, so it stuck with me when I read it. If anyone has any idea, please help me solve this. Been thinking about it for some time now. Edit. Here is a Photoshop job I just did of what I recall the image to look like. I remember a big emphasis on the lens flare in the original image, if that helps anybody. Edit 2. So, the above image I created for the sake of the investigation has been matched to a real one, and it is the one I remember. However, it's a very real, pretty graphic, historically significant photo of a cannibalized soldier in World War II, and is by no means specific to our dead god hunt. There's a chance the creator used the image in tandem with the creepypasta, just for spook factor, and that's where I remember it from, but it turns out that it isn't at all where the image originated from. A 4chan and Reddit post from 2014, which is 9 years ago now, can also be found, but they're mostly barren. One Redditor, user The Merminator, was able to trace the story back to the late 2000s. They also found a Tumblr blog from 2017 that listed the story under Lost Creepypastas, and a page from genius.com about the history of SCPs. Towards the bottom, the pasta is briefly mentioned. Quote, GOC was inspired by a pasta that was roaming around TG or X at the time about how Nietzsche was wrong. God wasn't dead. At least, not when he wrote that. The entity that called itself YHWH didn't die until the late 50s, destroyed by the Russian army. And that was mostly it for a long time. The creepypasta was nowhere to be found, and much like Hammerheads, remained lost in internet history. But in April of 2023, a post from r/lostmedia announced it was found. User Axumlo stated that he found an archive 4chan thread from September of 2008 about various ways to kill monsters. In it reads, both the Soviet Union and the USA throughout the Cold War made it their duty supernatural entities that they found to death. Publicly, this was acknowledged only as testing of nuclear weapons. Nietzsche was wrong when he claimed that God was dead. The Soviet Union didn't put Yahweh to death till October 30th, 1961 for crimes against humanity. The leadership of both governments today, though, has fallen under their thrall again, and it is unclear who now will stand against them. User Axumlo also noticed that the earliest edit of the SCP history page, which references this pasta, is December of 2008. So the timeline would fit perfectly. So, mystery solved, right? Some think so, others don't. That's not it, Chief. I've read the original story back in 2010, and the post you found is just a summary of the plots. Keep looking. I also remember reading it earlier, and don't think it's this one. I remember it specifically being the Red Army and the part about how God abandoned us. Other things I remember. The whole discovery was accidental. They were originally looking to find God, and had speculated that, due to the nature of the world, he had abandoned humanity. It was a scientist who made the discovery of what happened. The Red Army were the ones behind the killing during one of the world wars and covered it up. It ended with a monologue by the scientist who discovered what had happened, and it was something like, "We had already found him. God is dead, and we killed him." I seem to remember it being related to translating something. There is a lot of disagreements over whether this truly counts as being found. The first post we looked at had way more detail than the 4chan comments. Perhaps this inspired the actual creepypasta, which, if true, means that it is indeed still lost. Something that Axumlo himself admits might be the case. But considering how Cameraheads was also thought to be an expansive ARG with images and documents and ended up not being that, maybe people are misremembering. There are other creepypastas like the Russian Sleep Experiment or Gateway to the Mind with similar elements to this pasta. What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments below.
I think creepypastas are stupid. That's my thought. I really don't have anything to add on the last one. I don't understand the creepypastas and then those SPC, whatever they're called. They're just stupid to me. But whatever. So I'm going to go ahead and end this here. Like and subscribe, because if you don't, then I'll make more videos just to annoy you. That was stupid on my part. Okay, I'm ending this here. Have a good day. Have a good night.